Hello, everyone. It is very, very good to see you. Give me one hot second. Just got to check my settings here real fast. Okay, very good. Okay, looks like we're good to go. So thank you for joining. My name is Mark Dolfini of Strategic Boardroom. It's so very good to see you. You are here to learn about marketing magic. And this is one of my very favorite things to teach just because it has been such a journey for me to understanding lead generation and sales and just driving more traffic to my to whatever endeavor it is that I've got. I've been in multiple businesses, and some of them have been online, some of them have been offline. A lot of my income comes in from real estate, so I really had to understand marketing really more at a strategic level than at the granular level. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So for those of you who have just joined, I know we've got more people coming in. Let me know where you are from and what line of work that you're in. Where are you joining us from? There's people who have been all over the place, from the U.S. and the U.K. and Europe, Asia, Australia, in the African continent. It's been absolutely amazing seeing all sorts of different folks joining us. So just let me know where you're from and also what line of work that you're in. And the reason I'm asking that is so I can make this relevant to you specifically. Because if you have a certain business that you're in, I just want to make sure that I try to tie this in as best as I can to you. So let's see, we've got a few people signing on already. You're in London and you're a sales manager. Oh, it's late for you there. So yeah, it's almost bedtime. Well, depending on what time you go to bed. When I was in my 20s, that was when we were getting ready to go out. So I'm not sure, but you're a sales manager. Very good. All right. And Keith. Oh, hey Keith, good to see you. Glad that you could join. Yep, I recognize your name. All right. Funnel building, and you're in the life insurance. Yep, I understand what area of insurance that you're in. So good to see you, Keith. All right, for those of you again who are joining, I just want to let you know, just again, type in where you're from and what line of work that you're in as well. The other thing is too, is I get this question a lot, is will there be a replay? And yes, there will. So if you signed up from Eventbrite, we will be emailing you a copy of this replay. So you'll be getting that in your email. I also just want to let you know. So I often get that question. If you're joining from YouTube, and it looks like I've got someone joining from YouTube, oh my, oh father. Okay. I'm just gonna go with hello. It's nice to see you. Glad that you could join us from YouTube. It's good to see you. And Rose is, let's see, pet care services, non-veterinary. Okay, very good, Rose. Glad, and you're in from Connecticut, I'm assuming. All right. And Ima, this is about marketing magic. I am glad you asked. So this is about marketing magic, and for those of you who are interested in learning, if you are a business owner and you're really trying to get some traction with your marketing and you're struggling, we're going to be taking a top-down approach in terms of how to do that. So a lot of marketers out there, especially people who are teaching marketing, they get very granular on things. They get kind of into the details, in my opinion, a little bit too quickly. And the stuff that I'm going to be showing you today, we'll talk a little bit of stuff, a little bit of granular stuff, a little bit of tactical stuff, but you can't get to the tactical stuff before you kind of get to the basics. And this is something that I had to understand. And I spent, let me say that a different way. I wasted thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, dare I say millions of dollars, on horrendously bad marketing. And I'm just trying to save you some of that pain that I went through from having just just being very inefficient with my marketing dollars. So what I'm trying to demonstrate to you and what I'm trying to show you is a top-down approach, a very strategic approach to being much more effective in your marketing. And if you've got a business and you're trying to grow that business and you're trying to grow it and potentially even scale it, that is what I'm really going to be getting into. So you're asking me about marketing theory. Marketing theory, what marketing theory do I like the most? Honestly, I'm not attached to any particular one. You know what theory I like? The one that drives dollars. That's the one I like. And honestly, I am a student of all sorts of different marketers. I have learned from David Ogilvy. I have learned from Alex Hormozy. I have learned from Claude Hopkins. I have learned from, let's see, what were some other names? Gosh, I can't. Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy is one of my favorites. So in terms of all these theories and all that, at the end of the day, you know what matters? Dollars in your bank account. That's what matters. And making sure that you have absolutely raving fans. So you have raving fans, you have dollars in your bank account. Listen, I don't care what theory that you subscribe to. This is what for me, it's about results and making sure that you're getting you're translating that all that lead generation into actual dollars. So it's really good to see you. Thanks for the question. I do appreciate that. All right, so let's get to it. One quick thing I am going to demonstrate, and again, for those of you who have just joined, please let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. So I just want to say, fundamentally, I'm just going to ask you just a couple quick ground rules. I love that you guys are asking questions around this now and putting some stuff in the comments. Please let me know, like, if you've got questions along the way, just go ahead and put them in the comment section, and I promise I will come back. I've got natural breakpoints in the session, so I'll come back and answer any questions that you have. Just be really specific in your question. Don't say, what did you mean by that? And I don't have any clue what that means because I'm like 5 minutes removed from the actual thing. So make sure you're real specific in your questions. And also, please do your very best not to multitask, because during this webinar, I want to make sure that you're getting the very best value from our time together. And if you're multitasking and doing all sorts of different things and you're watching TikTok videos while you're trying to also listen to this, listen, the reality is I don't want you to miss a real true nugget that could really move the needle for you. So let's do your very best. You're trying to train your brain, right, on being really dialed in and really focused on what we're talking about today, what we're learning today. All right. So again, if you're just joining, I've seen some new people come in. If you are just joining me, please let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. Keith says, I like the one that drives business as well. Keith, you and I are simpatico. Exactly. That's the one that drives business. I am not dogmatic and thinking that it has to be a certain type of thing. I have learned that long ago that I'm not hitching my wagon to any one particular area. Okay, so I'm getting a thumbs up. Very good. All right, so give me just 1 second here. Anar from Edaflex Logistics, B2B, last mile delivery service from San Francisco, California. Interested to learn more about B2B, retail sales process, how to get leads besides Google Ads, and tactics to acquire into the clients. Okay, so I just want to be honest with you, Anar. That's a really, it sounds like it's a really granular question, but keep in mind what we're going to be talking about today is probably going to be a little bit more top down. But here's the interesting thing. As we get into this, I want you to understand that we're going to be starting with some of the basics. And I hear these conversations all the time, like, well, that's kind of basic. Okay, but have you unpacked the basics? Have you done the basics? Because I can't tell you how many times I didn't do the basics. I wasn't doing the basic work, and yet I was such in a rush to put stuff out in my marketing, and all I was doing is just throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing what sticks. Marketing is scientific. That it's testing. You have a control, you have a variable, and you put out that control of this certain hook, and then you put out a different hook, similar but not the same, and then you test it. You put out a few ad dollars to see which one works better, which one drives more volume, and then whichever the winner is, now you have a winner's bracket. And then you keep testing, right? You keep testing until you get some real winners. Then you test the body copy, which might be a VSL, video sales letter, or other things, right? So I'm just letting you know there's lots of different granular things that you have to do. If you're coming here for one main trick, I'm just telling you that's it. Is you have to test, and you have to be willing to put in the time and effort to put in that real, that really thing. So that one main thing. I'm as asking, what's the single most important metric you look at to predict if next month will be profitable? The single most important metric I look at to predict if next month will be profitable. You're asking kind of a marketing question versus, I mean, for me, it's about my conversions. So if I know I've got an ad out there, since we're speaking specifically about marketing, if I'm looking at my conversions, if I know that something is converting well and I'm getting lots of traffic, but maybe maybe I've got to tweak the ad a little bit. So this is where I'm getting a little bit closer. This is a really good question, Ima. So in other words, if I know that I've got a good hook and I know I'm getting some good traction on my VSL, like a video sales letter, or if I'm getting people who are coming through and they're clicking through to the ad. So they've seen the hook, which means that they've stopped the scroll. They're actually reading the body copy and then they click over to see the offer. If they jump off the offer, that tells me I'm getting closer. So that is real predictive in terms of the real value that I'm driving. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, I know I'm getting close. So I can't say if it's going to be next month. It might be next month. It might be 6 weeks. Heck, it could be 2 months. But the point is I know that I'm getting closer. Really, really good question. All right, so let's get to the actual meat and potatoes of what we're talking about. So your number one job of marketing is to create trust with your client avatar. That is your job. Because if they don't trust you, they will not buy. If they don't trust you, if they don't trust the product, or if they don't trust your company, they're not going to buy. And so your job is to try to learn how to create trust with your client avatar. And the fastest way to create trust, I'm going to talk about this here in just a hot second, but I just want to make this point. Your job is not to entertain. Your job is not to make them laugh. Your job is to go viral. That does not matter. Because there is no conversion table for impressions to dollars in your bank. That does not matter. Those are vanity metrics. They don't matter. Your job is to create trust with your avatar. So what I'm saying is that all of these things are, again, they're good for getting views, right? But your assignment first and foremost is to get them to trust you. Okay, so there's many trust triggers. We're going to go through several trust triggers here in just a little bit, and we're going to do that right out of the gate so you understand, so you can start thinking about how you can create and generate trust with them. Because if you're not creating trust with them right out of the gate, why should they trust you? They're not going to buy from you. It won't matter. Like, oh yeah, that was entertaining. Yeah, that was funny. Next, and that's going to be a real problem for you. So you've got to overcome that. The fastest way to create trust is to demonstrate competence. Demonstrate you know what you're talking about. Because if you're struggling to demonstrate competence with them and you're just not getting there, and you can do that through some education, and you start thinking, oh, okay, well, if that's true about organic blueberries and they sell organic blueberries, then they must be the authority on organic blueberries. Or if they are in insurance, right? I've got some insurance people on here. If that is true for insurance, okay, and let's say for argument's sake that term insurance might be a better solution for insurance than an IUL, given their circumstances, right? Because term insurance may have a different purpose than an IUL, than whole life, right? So what I'm saying is you're educating them in terms of a little bit different reasons, right? I have whole life policies, but I hold whole life policies really for holding cash, more for holding cash than I do for the insurance value. And you know why? Because I've had the person who set this up adjust the toggle, so I have much more cash accumulation than insurance. I'm not really all that concerned with the insurance. I have plenty of insurance. So it just depends on how you're educating your client. So demonstrate competence, demonstrate you know what you're talking about. That is the fastest way to build trust. Okay? So it's important. Think about this. Start thinking about now how you can demonstrate competence to your avatar. So when you start seeing marketing out there that is um Richard Penn saying hitching your wagon. There we go. Good to see you, brother. Is a good friend from Facebook. So when you're starting to demonstrate competence to your avatar, think about why you would stop the scroll on something. If someone's demonstrating competence to you, go, oh, that's a really good point. Start paying attention to what you pay attention to. And do you understand what I'm saying? Start paying attention to what you pay attention to. So that is really, really important to do that. So hello, Linda. Good to see you. Yes, Congolese. I recognize you. I'm glad you could join us today, Linda. All right. So start thinking about that in terms of how you can demonstrate competence to your avatar. When it comes to building trust, let's look at just a couple of different areas of trust. The first two are competence and character. And by the way, what I'm going to show you and demonstrate is true in lead generation. It's true in networking. It's true in sales. And it's also true in leadership and management and just being an effective human being. And it comes down to these first two elements of trust is competence and character. Let's be honest. When it comes to character, it all rises and falls on character. If you are not demonstrating good character, they're definitely not going to trust you. Like if I came on here, hang on just one second. I know you're asking a bunch of questions, but hang on. So when you're looking at different pieces of character, okay, if you say that person comes on and they are demonstrating lots of competence, but they're kind of giving you that icky vibe, and there's plenty of people on social media. I don't need to name names because that's just my opinion. And I look at them and I'm going, okay, maybe they have some good information, but man, there's just something not right. There's something off. And it could be completely illegitimate, but it's my perception. And guess what? My perception is my reality. I'm not going to buy from them. I will never send them $1. I might take all their free competence stuff, all their free information, and I might sock that away to utilize that in my own way. But if I don't trust their character, I'm not going to buy from them. And that is true for you. So you have to think about this, and this has to align with your ideal client avatar. We'll come back to that here in a minute. So this is when you're starting to think about your competence. Again, I talked about this in terms of why people are going to trust you. And I think that when you're looking at character and competence, this is where these two things, they are two trees that share the same root system. They have a symbiotic relationship between the two. So when you're looking at character and competence, the fastest way to build trust is to demonstrate competence. The fastest way to destroy trust is to demonstrate a lack of character, right? If I came on here and started talking about, oh, I've got a date with my girlfriend, later on, so I got to rush out of here. And you're like, dude, don't you mention you have a bride? Like you mentioned you're married. Like, what are you talking about, right? That would show a lack of character, and in many cultures, that's not a good thing. So people are just going to like, okay, yeah, I'll listen to him, but I'm not going to buy from him. All right. And by the way, I don't have anything to sell to you today. I'm just letting you know. But so let's look at these other areas of trust. There's 7 in total. One is caring, confidence, commitment, communication, and consistency. All of these areas have to be true. And if they are not true, people will not trust you and you won't know why. So again, let's look at number 3, caring. Have you ever heard of the phrase that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care? That's very true. And that's fruit of the tree of character. Look at confidence. You have to demonstrate confidence in what you know, and you know your product or service is the right fit for them. If it's not the right fit for them, don't try to sell them something they don't need. But you do need to demonstrate confidence. You do need to demonstrate that you feel very convicted that you know what you're talking about. Think about, if I came on here and it's like, well, yeah, I might teach you just a couple things about marketing that might maybe work for you. No, like the stuff I'm going to show you today and the rest of this webinar It absolutely works. And you know the reason why I know this? Because I got it wrong for so many years. So that's why you have to demonstrate that confidence, which also inspires trust. Let's look at commitment. Commitment is how committed are you to your product or service? And this is something that I'm just going to say here, which is, let's see here. Keith is saying something here. Competence and character are what help you build the trust and relationship with your client. Absolutely, Keith. Couldn't have said it any better. In fact, I'm going to leave that up there because what Keith just said is, again, fruit of these other things. They develop that fruit of commitment, right? And commitment is also coming from not just competence, that you're demonstrating commitment to your product or service, but also to your character, that you're committed to who you are as a human being, and you're committed to the product or service that you're representing. But this is something that I have mentioned, or I'm bringing up with, for those of you who are business owners. For those of you who are business owners, or I'm going to put in air quotes, the serial entrepreneur. Well, realistically, you're not a serial entrepreneur. Many people who label themselves as serial entrepreneurs are not serial entrepreneurs. What they are is they're serial job creators for themselves. All they have done is created 7 or 8 different jobs that if they don't work that job, they don't make any money. That's a very different thing than having 7 or 8 different businesses. 7 or 8 different businesses is that if you don't show up, 7 businesses still make money for you. That's a very different standard than having 7 different jobs that if you're not doing that job in that moment, that you're not making any money. So the reason I'm bringing this up in terms of commitment is that how many folks do I see that show up and they're like, oh, I'm going to use this I'm going to change the name. Okay. So I'm going to use this story, but we're going to call him Real Estate Ralphie. Real Estate Ralphie. Real Estate Ralphie. And I get most of my money from real estate. So I've been in the real estate game for quite a bit, or for quite a while. And Real Estate Ralphie, he owned this particular color. We'll say the color was yellow. And Real Estate Ralphie owned this particular color. Every piece of marketing that he put out had yellow in it. And he was known as Real Estate Ralphie. And he was always just posting stuff about real estate and just different stuff. And I'm not entirely sure what he did in real estate, but I have a feeling that he was a wholesaler. But I never really paid a whole heck of a lot of attention to it until Real Estate Ralphie started putting ads up on his page for mushroom coffee or some weird thing like that. It was like a $10 bag of mushroom coffee. And I was like, what in the world is, what in the world are you actually doing? What does that even mean? Why are you ruining your brand over something like that? That doesn't make any sense. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So I actually watched this guy destroy his brand almost overnight because he was doing that. So I was just like, that didn't make any sense. So I just want you to understand that how committed was he to his real estate? And then all of a sudden he turns around and starts selling mushroom coffee. And I see that over and over and over again with people who are in, who are real estate investors. And then, then they'll sell insurance on the side. And then they start selling essential oils or something. So when you're really fragmented like that, it's hard to demonstrate commitment to any one particular thing. And that really hurts a lot of business owners. So that is commitment trust. Communication trust, it's about how well you communicate and how often you communicate. What is the level of trust in your communication and also in your consistency? How consistent are you in the areas that matter? In terms of reaching out and following up and doing all the things that you do to have that level of trust with folks. So I just want to let you know that these areas of trust, this really matters so very much in your marketing. If you're not going to pay attention to this stuff in here, again, people will not trust you in your marketing and you may never know why. Let's see. Let's see. Nowadays, people are too cunning. Yeah, they know it. Absolutely, Ima. Yeah, I'm telling you, people are just paying attention to too many other things. You asked a couple questions. I'm going to try to. You're asking really good questions, but I'm trying to keep things rolling. So, you've got a good question here. In your experience, what is the strongest emotional trigger that makes a man buy today rather than tomorrow? Is it fear of missing out, greed, or status? So I'm gonna go off a little bit off script here because this is such a great question. I really like this question, Ima. So one of the things that I feel here is when you start recognizing, there was a fantastic book that was put out. It was actually two books put out by this guy Robert Cialdini, and he wrote a book called Influence, and he wrote a follow up book called Persuasion. And those two things, what he recognized is that there were real main principles of persuasion of why people would do what they would do. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to actually talk about other reasons, 15 reasons why people buy. But one of the things that he talked about was these different principles of reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. And he also, in Persuasion, he talked about things that are familial, things that why people will buy because people are familiar with these things. But honestly, probably one of the strongest things is scarcity. I think you put up FOMO out there. Fear of missing out. I think really people hate when something is scarce and they potentially miss out on it. But I mean, there are lots of reasons why people will buy. Lots of ways that people can be persuaded. So that's a fascinating question. I don't have time to unpack all of it. But yeah, so that's a really, really good thing. Okay, so let's keep moving. Let's see. When you have multiple masters, your primary master withers and dies. Yeah, that's such a good point, Keith. And again, when you're serving too many masters, it's very confusing to your avatar. So good stuff. So one of the things, we're going to get to the agenda here in just a hot second, but I just want you to understand that there's this seeking to understand, seeking knowledge just for the sake of understanding versus seeking knowledge to take action. And we're going to be getting into some other stuff here. But at the end of this, I want you to understand that it's really important that I really want to know what action that you're going to be taking. So start keeping this in mind in terms of when we get to the end of this. We'll be done in about maybe 45 minutes or so. And again, if you're not able to stick around, you will. If you signed up through Eventbrite, you will be able to get the replay sent to your email. Excuse me. And here's the thing, though. You have to be continually focused on your lead generation, because here's the truth. You can have the best, most efficient business. You can be an absolute paragon of virtue and truth and justice and apple pie and all that stuff. Your sales technique can be so dialed in that you can sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. That is the truth. And I will tell you this for free because here is this first book that I wrote. It's called The Time Wealthy Investor. This book is actually out of print now. And this is, it's a good book. And I'm not saying it's a good book just because I wrote it. It's about a 280-page book. It was my very first book. And it took me about 2 years to write this book. And I was like, okay, 2 years to write it, edit it. And I was like so excited to get this thing out into the public. And I went ahead and I clicked submit in Amazon. At the time, it was actually called Create Space. It wasn't actually KDP at that point in time. Kindle hadn't purchased it yet. Or actually, Amazon had not purchased it yet, I don't think. Anyway, so it was connecting directly to Amazon. I was so excited. And in that first month, I would put that book out there and I was like, oh my gosh, you're welcome, world. Here's this amazing book on how to manage rental properties without spending all your time doing it. You can be time wealthy. I thought this was a no-brainer book for people to buy. And my book sales after almost 4 weeks of book sales were $0. Ugh. 2 years to do this book, and I was like, wait a minute, this is going to be way harder than I thought. Okay, I had to learn some marketing. This was going to be a tough lesson. All right, so I started to learn a little bit of the marketing side of things. I'd never sold a book before. I already had this brand, Landlord Coach, and I started connecting the I'm just trying to keep up on the chat here. So I'm connecting. I'm connecting the book to Landlord Coach, and I'm starting to sell it. I created this brand. I started learning all about funnels. I read everything from .com secrets and expert secrets and everything Russell Brunson had written up at that point. And I was, posting and marketing and emailing and cajoling, right? And I started to put a ton of effort into selling this book. And I paid for Amazon ads. I paid for Facebook ads. I paid for Google ads. And my volume increased tremendously. And I spent just shy of 3 months doing nothing but other than try to sell these darn books. And from all that effort, I went from $0 in sales to $95.64. Yeah, I'm not kidding. It took me 2 years to write this darn book and no sales and all these funnels and buying all these other courses and creating a brand and spending money and more money. I felt like the only people who were actually making money were the advertisers, right? And by the way, this was 12 sales. This is 12 sales. And that wasn't even profit, by the way. I was selling the book at break even just to try to get some traction. How many of you would have wanted to give up at this point? Right? I was so incredibly discouraged. And this is my discouraged face. Like, are you kidding me? Well, listen, why didn't they buy the books? Here's the thing. Because I was trying to sell them information. What they wanted was transformation. I was trying to sell them books when what they just needed was a little bit of breathing room. They wanted their life to be better. I was selling them the trip, not the vacation. Think about that. I wasn't selling them sitting on the beach with a little cocktail in their hand. I was selling them a 7-hour flight, dragging half their crap through 2 or 3 different airports with maybe some kids in tow, getting off in a foreign land and not knowing what taxis to take and how to get to the airport and dragging all these different things. That's what I was selling them. I was selling them homework. Who in the world wants to buy homework? Nobody. Okay. So fundamentally, they didn't trust me, and they didn't trust the fact that what I had was actually going to change their life. They didn't trust that I knew what I was talking about. Plus, they probably didn't trust themselves to buy a book that they would invest weeks in reading, because let me just be honest with you. How many people have bought books that they have never read? Again, if I had 3 hands, I'd put them all up, because I buy lots of books. Now, I read a lot. I read 42 books last year. So I read a lot, but I've still got way more books. I'm probably going to have to live to 1,000 at this point to read all the books that I actually have. So again, there was a certain amount of trust that they didn't have for themselves. So that is really important. They needed to trust themselves to actually implement. So because of that, they didn't buy it. I had done very little to demonstrate trust with my avatar. Now, let me just show you this screen here, because this is extremely relevant. Okay. And by the way, if you want to get a copy of that book, you can get a copy of the Time Wealthy Investor 2.0, because the original Time Wealthy Investor is actually out of print. The Time Wealthy Investor 2.0 is available on Amazon if you'd like to get it. Or you can go to landlordcoach.com. I think might still be available there. But anyway, I know it's available on Amazon. But here's my revenues. Here's what my revenues look like in 2017. And eventually I did start making some money. And if you look at this little teeny tiny sliver at the bottom, I was making about $1,000 or so a month in monthly revenues. And then it started to shoot up. And I got about $8,000 in revenue just as I was heading into 2019. And then it went to just about $17,000 a month in monthly revenues, just as we were heading into COVID. So that was a really big thing. And I did start making some money, but it wasn't from book sales. It was actually, I was using and leveraging the book as demonstrating authority. You're going to hear me talk about authority here in a little bit, but because I was demonstrating authority as an author, that really helped me sell a lot of other services that were much higher ticket. Okay, so that was what I would do. I was selling that book at a lower price, or a lot of times if people were coming to me, I would give them a copy of that book plus another course that I had created if they signed up. So I was able to use that as an enticement in that book, which is a really good book, by the way. I'm not saying it because I wrote it. Again, I'm saying it because this is the feedback I've gotten from other people. It really did help them turn their rental business around. So again, so we're talking about in terms of the agenda, we're talking about systems approach and we're talking about a psychology approach. And then we're going to talk about the 4 core functions of business. We're talking about different marketing magic that you're going to apply. And then we're going to talk about different resources. So the systems approach that I'm going to be talking about is the Time Wealthy Advantage. That's the book that's over my right shoulder here. That is the book that is my last big book. That's my last major book. I wrote and published 5 books last year. That book is it's a little longer than the first one. It's a 300-page book. And it goes through all of the things in terms of the Viper method. I'm not here to promote the book. I'm just want to let you know That's where this is coming from. So if those of you would like to get a little bit more granular, you can go to my website. If you're in the United States and you'd like a signed copy, just go to my website, strategicboardroom.com, and you can buy it directly. It's on the main page. Click the thing, click the button, and there's also some bonus stuff in there if you want that. If you are outside the United States, because it seems like a couple of you are outside the US, then your best bet is to get that through Amazon, just because their fulfillment can hit a lot of different areas of the world that I just can't. So let's talk about the Viper framework. The Viper framework. Now, for those of you who are business owners, this is going to be extremely relevant to you. If you are not a business owner, that's fine. I'm just letting you know that this top-down framework is very relevant to how you might set up a sales system or anything along those lines. So just hang in there. I just want to let you know that this Viper framework really is specific to business owners. So let's look at the Viper framework. This is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. So in terms of vision has two components, and that is made up of both personal vision and business vision. From a personal vision perspective, personal vision is where you want to go. Right? So Ima, where do you want to go? Keith, where do you want to go? Right? Like, let's see, Richard, where is it that you want to go? Anar, where do you want to go in your life? And those questions right there, when you start to answer those questions, you're just like, okay, what do you mean where I want to go? Well, listen, where do you want to go in life if your life wasn't defined by income generation? If your job description wasn't also your life description? Those are really important things to think about. And you start thinking about, well, what do I want my relationships to look like? What do I want my relationship with my family and with my spouse, with my children, with my faith? Like, what are those things what do I want my life to look like? And that's going to be important for you to define those things up front, so you can really start to get really clear about what direction you're actually heading in. Because again, that business exists to serve you, not the other way around. So when you start putting a business vision together, you're going to like, okay, cool, that's where I want to go. Right now, you're going to think, okay, how am I going to get there? That's what the business vision does. The business exists to serve you. The business exists to serve your personal vision. So this is interesting, because many times, and I've sat in, I don't even know at this point, dozens, if not hundreds of conferences and seminars, or even masterminds, where I'm sitting next to people who are just absolutely crushing it financially, and they're making 6 and 7 figures a month. And you know what the things are that they're worried about? Putting an extra comma in their bank account. That's what they're more worried about. And meanwhile, what they've got going on at home is a complete barn fire. So I'm just telling you, like, and for those people, even though they know their life is a train wreck, that's what they're more worried about, because they've always been focused on a business vision. And the danger in creating a business vision before creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you that that's an empty well that never gets filled in. So and I hear this, I especially hear this from younger folks, let me make, 50 or 60 grand a month, 50 grand, let me make 100 grand a month, and then I'll worry about that better life thing. The problem is that's exactly the path that these other people were on, and they were miserable. So I'm just saying, you can follow my advice or not follow my advice. I'm just telling you that this is something you just have to be careful of. So take the time to actually put together a personal vision that's actually meaningful. So it is, when you're looking at the 3 C's of business vision, I want you to understand something. Understanding these 3 elements is going to make your marketing stand out and massively more effective. These 3 C's of business vision, they are so important. They're so foundational, because I'm going to get to your question here in a second, Ima. The understanding these 3 elements is so important, because every time I get invited or hired to be a strategist for a company, whether I'm just being hired in as a strategist or a CSO, Chief Strategic Officer, from a fractional perspective, these 3 C's, almost all of them, they are missing one or more of these components. Usually they're deficient in all 3. So these 3 C's of business vision are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Let's talk about core purpose. Core purpose of your business is specifically what business that you're in and what problems do you solve. And it's really important that you be highly specific in your answers, right? So Keith mentioned, and I think Keith is extremely dialed in. I've actually had conversations with Keith, so I actually know what business he's in. I'm not going to get super granular because I don't want to put his business out there, but he talked specifically about certain insurance products that he sells. Okay, that's great. If I came to him and said, well, could you get me into like maybe some property and casualty insurance? And I'm hoping Keith is going to say, no, that's not really what I do. But the minute you start offering all sorts of different stuff just because you can, it becomes very fragmented. And that's how people get very fragmented in their core purpose. Again, I use this as an example. I'm not going to talk about it today. But when I talk about strategic planning, one of the things of strategic planning is in the P, which is the process, there's strategic planning, which is people, purpose, and promotion. And the purpose, the strategic purpose has to be in alignment with the core purpose. Because if it doesn't, that's how you get these entrepreneurs who wander. That's how you get these entrepreneurs who do a little bit of this and do a little bit of that, and they're not, and it's just that shiny object syndrome. And because they end up chasing two rabbits, they end up catching neither one. So your core purpose and your strategic purpose do need to be in alignment. And again, if it's not, it gets very confusing for your avatar. We'll talk about avatar here in a second. But the core purpose here, what I'm saying is that when you're really dialed into what it is what your actual purpose is, if it wasn't in alignment, it would be like if Starbucks started selling chainsaws. It doesn't make sense, right? You'd be like, wait, why are we selling chainsaws? I mean, are we servicing them too? Like, we're supposed to change the oil while we're firing up a mocha? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I hope you don't get the liquids mixed up, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to recognize that just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And that's why you got to be really dialed in on your core purpose. And for those, like, for example, a lot of times people are way too wide, way too broad in their core purpose. Like, well, what do you do in real estate? Oh, I do all sorts of things in real estate. Okay, are you struggling? Well, yeah. It's because you're probably you got way too broad in your marketing. This is why they always talk about differentiation, getting really niche down, because that's really where you're going to get some real traction. So we talked about core purpose. Let's talk about core values. Core values is what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you were no longer in business? Let me just answer this quick question real quick, Keith. It's all about understanding your priorities. When you are a business owner, those priorities must include your personal and family life. That's absolutely so. That's so true, Keith. And unfortunately, there's so many business owners who don't get that right, and unfortunately, the reason I lead with that, even though this is a business, session here, I always put that in because I just think there's too many families who are breaking up because they're focusing on the wrong things. And that's really important. That's really, really critical. So, that is, let's see. You've got a question here. I'm a Mark. Psychologically speaking, is it easier to sell a solution to a new avatar or freedom to an existing one? I don't even need to read any further. An existing client is always easier to sell to. I don't care what I'm selling to an existing client. As long as it's in line with my core purpose, it's always easier to sell to an existing client. So a new avatar, and this is mathematical, like this has been tracked over the history of time, is that depending on what it is, a new customer can be as much as 9 times more expensive than selling to an existing client. So again, as long as you're in alignment with your core purpose, selling to an existing client is always going to be cheaper. Always. It's just, that's mathematical. So good questions, Ima. I appreciate you asking the questions. So, and this also ties, Ima, into the core values. Like, what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you were no longer in business? This is because our businesses are just an extension of us. Your business is an extension of you. This is really important for you to stop and think, okay, well, if this really matters to me, and it matters to me so much that I'm willing to take action on it, it probably represents a core value for you. So you might be thinking, well, what does that have to do with the price of tomatoes? What does this have to do with marketing? It has everything to do with marketing. Because here's the thing. Especially if you're trying to create something more than just a side hustle. If you're just trying to sell insurance and you just want to sell more policies, fine. But it's going to be transaction by transaction. You're always going to be battling it. And I didn't understand that, especially in the early days when I was trying to sell a book. But once I started developing a culture, I was developing a series. I was creating a movement. I was creating raving fans because they were like, oh, I really get that guy. I really like the fact that he really brings in the family side of it, not just all about business. And that's because that's important to me. I spent way too much time focused on chasing the other thing, and I wasn't getting it. So once I started, and my life was a mess. It was a true mess. I was having failed relationships and family members who were, and people who were dying that I couldn't even go to their funerals because I was so busy with just chasing opportunities. But once I started thinking about my core values, now again, your values, we all have values, right? Those are really, really important. But when you have a core value, that's how you know like you're willing to act on it. Like, again, if you have for example, if you had a friend, have you ever had a friend, where they were heading down a path that you couldn't follow them? Have you ever had a friend and you had to let them go? And maybe that was a significant other in your life, right? Right, Keith? Like, again, and if you lived more than 20 minutes on this planet, that's probably true for you. Well, as much as that sucks, you had to let them go. And the reason you let them go is probably because it was a violation of a core value for you. Again, someone breaks into my office and wants to steal my peanut M&Ms. I value peanut M&Ms. Not enough to go to war over, but someone breaks into my house and threatens my family. Yeah, we're going to box. Like, at minimum, we're going to box, right? Because that is a core value for me. So I just want you to think about that. And that's how it translates into core values for your avatar. And this is where we're going to be talking about here for the type of client that you're trying to attract. So we talked about core purpose. We talked about core values. Now let's talk about client avatar. Client avatar is who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? Who is that person? Or who is that couple? Or who is that board of directors? I don't care. It could be a group of people, but who are they? And who are these people that you ideally want to serve? I cannot tell you how many times and how basic this sounds. And as many people who like come to me and ask me for help with their marketing, I'm like, okay, cool. How is your avatar? And they're like, well, and they give me this really long, vague answer. And I'm like, okay, fix that. And you will help your sales. You will help your sales a lot. So again, this is where it's really important. So if your description has the word anyone, you're going to attract everyone. And when you try to be everything to everyone, you're going to attract no one. So if you are using the word anyone who, stop right there. That's part of your problem. Okay. I like working with married business owners who have kids at home that have businesses, right? Married, generally they tend to be Christian. They don't have to be. And I'm just saying they tend to be married Christian business owners who have kids at home that are just absolutely buried in their operation. And they want to grow. They want to have more money. They want to have more free time, and they have no idea how to do it. Those exhausted folks, I can give them a reprieve. I can give them satisfaction. I can help those folks. So do you see how dialed in that is? So mine isn't a specific business owner. Does it mean I won't work with single people? No, not at all. I'm just saying that's the avatar. That's generally the people that I tend to attract. So because of that, I know their geographics. I know where they live, right? I know their demographics and their psychographics. Let's talk about geographics, demographics, and psychographics. Geographics is pretty straightforward. It's where they are. Pretty straightforward. The demographics is who they are. Are they married? Are they single? Are they are they wealthy? Are they just getting started in their careers? Just all the different things, like in terms of where they, are they old, are they young, yada, yada, right? That's all the demographics that are relevant to who you're trying to attract. The last one is just as equally as important, and you have to think this through. And that's their psychographics. And that is how they think and how they buy. How they think and how they buy. So let's talk about psychographics. When we're talking about psychographics, I want you to think of the phrase ALIA, A-L-I-A. So that is an acronym for attitudes, lifestyles, interests, and aspirations and goals. Look, if you get nothing else from today, taking the time to actually identify these people down to their psychographics, not not only, again, their geographics, obviously where they are, that makes it easier to start to narrow them down. Their demographics, if they're married and young or whatever, like their age group, that absolutely matters. But their psychographics are so important because it dictates their attitudes. What's their attitude of, Keith, what's their attitude towards insurance? Right? Maybe they don't know, or maybe they just hate insurance. They've been told to not trust insurance companies. Who knows? But for you to understand their attitude towards insurance, don't you think that would be helpful for you in your marketing? To me, that's a no-brainer, right? What's their attitude towards business? The attitude I'm looking for are people who are exhausted, people who are frustrated, people who are looking for answers. I help save people a ton of time because I spend so much time in reading and research and boiling down different things that I see going on in the marketplace and distilling it down to the finest parts that I can just basically say, oh, rather than sort through the tomes of books that I have read, why don't you just let me help you out. Let me give you this and spoon feed this to you so it's all nice and distilled down and they don't have to go sorting through all the different stuff that I have learned for them. Make sense? So understanding their attitudes is really, really important. Then understand their lifestyle. What's their lifestyle like? Again, are they young and jet setting? Are they old and jet setting, right? So there's a lot of grandparents who are out there traveling the world who want to know, like, oh yeah, maybe their grandkids are older and they travel a bunch and they spend time with seeing their grandkids when they can, or they're kind of homebodies, right? And there's young people who are homebodies and there are older folks who are homebodies. But what's their lifestyle like, right? Think about that. Think about their interests. What are they interested in? Are they interested in art? Are they interested in reading? Are they interested in American football? Are they interested in European football? Whatever. NASCAR, Formula One, I don't care. What are they interested in? Their aspirations and goals. If you can understand someone's aspirations and goals, and this is really, really critical. So again, if you are an insurance person, or if you're a real estate person, don't you think it would be helpful for you to know what their aspirations and their goals are, what they're aspiring to? Because then you could be part of the solution for them. It makes sense. It stands to reason. So this is really important as you're going through this. So let me just see here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up with your questions. Can a business be highly profitable in the short term without core values, or is that a recipe for a future crash? Recipe for a future crash. I'm not asking your question. I'm sure it can be profitable in the short term, of course, right? You can be profitable in the short term without any of these things defined. I'm just telling you how to be defined where you're not having to go out and hunt for a lead every single time one comes in. I'm talking about creating something that's truly a business, then rather than just being this single one-off lead generation, one after another, because the one point that I didn't make here, and I'm going to wrap this up on the 3 C's of business vision here. But the one point I didn't make about core values is because core values helps define company culture. And company culture and company brand are inextricably linked. The company culture is what's experienced by your employees. Your company culture is what's experienced by the people internal to your organization. The company brand is what's experienced by your clients and your customers and the public. So, and those things are they're intermingled, and they come from by strongly defined core values. The core values, that's the DNA of your company. So I just want you to think about that. Again, can you be successful or can you be profitable short term? Absolutely. But I'm just telling you, the companies that are over the long haul have really defined core values because they've got good leadership. They've got well-defined core values, and they got a very strong company culture. And because they've got such a strong company culture, they've also got a very strong company brand. All right. So remember, I just want you to think about this on the outside of the core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Your job is not to provide good service. Your job is not to have a satisfied customer. That is not your job. That is the base standard. That is the minimum. Because let me just give you this example. Let's say that you guys go out, and I haven't heard from anybody else here. I know that we've got quite a few people. If you're just joining, let me know where you're from and what kind of business that you're in. So we got quite a few people that have just joined. So let me just ask this question. Let's say that you go out and you're going out with a friend or your significant other, and you're getting something to eat. You go to the restaurant, you wait just a few minutes, you get seated, they bring you the menu, you order, they bring you drinks, you order, it comes out in a reasonable amount of time, the food is good, the waiter or waitress checks on you, refills your water glasses, ask if you want dessert. You're like, no, I'm good. Nothing really looks like it's going to knock my socks off. You get the bill. The bill seems reasonable. You pay, you leave. You are, therefore, satisfied. How many people are you going to tell about that satisfactory engagement? How many people are you going to be like, oh, wow, yeah, it was good service. Like, oh my gosh, let me tell you how acceptable that service was there. Oh my gosh, let me tell you about this really satisfactory meal that I had. That is not the standard. That's the base minimum. That's the default setting, is having good service or a satisfied customer. That is what you need to get out of your head. What your job is to create a raving fanatic about your business. And it starts in your lead generation. This is so important for you to understand. And this is where you have to recognize that when you're putting this together in the different traffic sources, and I want you to think about this, the different types of traffic, they're labeled like this. And I want you to look at this because this is where it all starts, is how these people are coming to you. So when you're looking at this, there are 4 types of traffic. There's frozen traffic, cold traffic, warm traffic, and hot traffic. And these are not maybe what you think. Most of the time when I ask people what hot traffic are, they're like, oh, they're ready to buy. They're like ready to go. I'm going to give you a different ideology, different thought, different concept here. All right. Frozen traffic are people who are not problem aware. They don't even know that they have a problem. Okay. Let me give you a story. Let's pretend that you jump on the internet, and you all of a sudden you get hooked by some sort of headline. You get hooked by some sort of headline, and that headline says 7 ways that cucumbers are going to kill you. And in parentheses it says, by the way, this includes pickles. And you turn to your significant other and you go, oh man, did we have pickles on our burgers last night? Right? So now, because we're like suckers for bad news, we click on the ad. I've got my hand raised because I click on those ads all the time and they get me. And I know they're ads, but it's like, I just want to see what it is, right? What's the 7 ways that cucumbers are going to kill me? By the way, everything I'm making up here, everything I'm saying is completely made up. I don't know that much about cucumbers. I'm just making it all up. So don't send me hate mail like, the American Cucumber Association is going to sue me or something, because I'm completely making this up. And I don't even know if there is an American Cucumber Association, but there probably is. All right, so they are not problem aware. So you go in, I'm not aware that how cucumbers could potentially, cause me death. So what does the ad do in that moment in time? It doesn't even look like an ad, does it? It looks like an editorial. It looks like a news thing, or it might be a video. And it's going to educate me all about cucumbers. It's going to tell me about the Ecuadorian cucumber, and it's going to tell me about the Peruvian cucumber and all these different things, and the different types of soil that it's grown in. And it's grown in organic, or volcanic soil, and blah, 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 right? So the problem is that many cucumbers, again, making this up, is because once they get shipped to your country, your home country, they're sprayed with a certain chemical that can really cause all sorts of butt boils, right? So now I don't want boils on my butt. All right, well, that's terrible, right? So now what am I? I am now officially cold traffic. I am now officially problem aware, okay? And it can cause all sorts of digestive issues, and you might feel sluggish. Do you feel sluggish? You're like, oh my gosh, I feel sluggish. And you're like, yeah, right? That could be because you're eating cucumbers that are sprayed with this chemical, and because they were grown outside your country, the United States, or wherever you're from. This is the problem. Okay, so now you're problem aware. Okay, so now it goes on to educate you a little further. Now, the solution to this is to purchase cucumbers that are organically grown in your home country. And they're not sprayed with this chemical because they don't have to be sprayed with this chemical because they're organically grown, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, oh, wow. So there's a solution to this problem. Now I'm aware of this solution. Okay, great. I am now officially solution aware. I am now warm traffic. Are you guys tracking? So this is so important that when you're looking at not, going from frozen traffic to not problem aware at all to being problem aware of cucumbers that are now sprayed with this chemical causing butt boils, and now I'm solution aware, and I don't want butt boils, and I don't want I don't want to feel sluggish, so now I'm solution aware. And guess what? Well, by the way, I happen to, this company happens to sell cucumbers, and not only do we sell organically grown cucumbers in your home country, but we also have an entire assortment of pickles. And by the way, if you buy them today and you get to a certain part of the video or wherever you are at in the infomercial, right? Now a timer pops up, and then if you order within the next 10 minutes, you'll get your second or third jar 50% off, and they'll be drop shipped directly to your doorstep. Does this sound familiar at all? Well, now you are aware. Does this mean I'm ready to buy? It does not mean I'm ready to buy. It just means that I'm aware that that company exists. I am now problem aware, I am solution aware, and I am you aware. That does not mean I'm ready to buy, but it does mean that you need to talk to this traffic differently now that they are you aware. Because if I started trying to talk to frozen traffic like they were hot traffic, they're going to be very confused. They're not aware of you. They don't even know that there's a problem. Why are you talking to me this way? It would be like if you went home and started talking to your spouse. You're like, oh, well, hello there. My name is Mr. Dolfini. And they're like, why are you like, why are you, did you have a seizure? What's happening to you right now? Right. So I'm just saying, you have to talk to your different phases of traffic. You have to talk to them differently. So if you get these people on an email list, you can now talk to them like they're hot traffic. If they're not on an email list, you have to talk to them like they're frozen traffic or cold traffic. Does that make sense? So you have to recognize where they're at in this parade. But the one thing that's going to matter if they're actually going to purchase from you is this: desire. Traffic temperature is incredibly irrelevant if there isn't desire. For example, Keith sells life insurance. It's not going to matter. I mean, look, there's two things that are sure in life, right? Death and taxes. And we know we're all going to pass away. We all know we're going to graduate at some point and head on to the other side. But the point is, if there's no desire, they go, I know about cucumbers, but quite frankly, I'll just roll the dice. I don't really care. Okay, if there's no desire, they are not going to buy. And that's why it's important to understand the desire component in your marketing. And I'm going to talk about how to tie into that desire. We'll get there. Stay with me. We're going to get there. But that is such an important consideration when you're actually selling to folks. So it's not just talking to them in different traffic temperatures. So if they're not problem aware, again, they know they're going to die. But hey, do you know if you're married and you pass away, that your spouse, they're going to be completely left on their own. And if they rely on your income, they're going to be in a real bad spot. And especially, when's the last time you really even thought about life insurance, right? And it doesn't have to be that expensive, right? You're starting to make them problem aware. Okay. But if there isn't that desire, it's like, hey, what if they don't have a great relationship with their spouse? Probably not a good angle to try to sell them that. Right? If they have a great relationship with their children, maybe it would. Okay? That's where you have to start to recognize the importance of desire. So we talked about personal vision, business vision. I'm going to blow through these really quickly because, again, this is the rest of the framework for the Viper methodology. So let's get to infrastructure. Infrastructure is the bones of the business. It's the desks, the chairs, the software, just the basic bones of the business, right? It's all the websites, things like that. I just want you to think about this in terms of your marketing. When you're putting together like you're thinking about your lead generation, your marketing function, this is where you're starting to think about your CRM, like your customer relationship management software. And you might think of something like Pipedrive. I actually use Pipedrive. I really like it, but you need to have something that's going to track the relationships with these people when they're coming into your atmosphere. I don't care. Look, you can do it on the back of a towel. I don't care, but you have to have something for when these people come into your atmosphere, and it's not their job to remember you. Well, I talked to them once about life insurance. They should know what I do. Really? Really? You talked to them a whole one time? Did you? When's the last time you talked to them? Well, I called them again, like maybe a good 2-3 weeks ago, and, that's, okay. When do you plan on following back up with them again? When do you plan educating them again? When do you plan bringing value to them again? That's not you asking for the sale. That is being a pain in the neck. That's not being good in sales, although we're not talking about sales right now. But in terms of following back up or sending them things that actually will be helpful for them as an avatar, what's their lifestyle like? What's their attitude like? What are they interested in? Send them things that's going to be interesting to that avatar. Be a source of information for them. Be a source of value for them, not just always asking them to buy stuff. Listen, I'm not asking you guys to buy anything. I mentioned my book, but trust and know, you do not make a ton of money on books. But yeah, I may have mentioned that, but have you guys at least found some value in today? Right? I would assume so, right? Maybe I get a lot of feedback from these, and people tell me they take a lot of notes and they're very, very helpful. So I'm assuming you've gotten something out of it, right? That's why I do this. I do this because I want you guys to be educated, and eventually maybe you'll buy something from me. Maybe you won't, and that's okay. I really like this part because this is a lead generation piece for me. And you're like, dude, why are you being so transparent about this? Because this is what it takes. It takes doing webinars and putting stuff out there and making stuff really highly valuable to your avatar. Does that make sense? So again, for those of you who come into my atmosphere, I'm going to be reaching back out to you, letting you know, hey, here's some stuff that you are free. Here's some other things to maybe consider. Hey, and here's maybe something you can buy, right? I'm not doing it all the time. I'm mixing it up. So this is where you start to think, this is what you got to do this, but you got to have a CRM to do this so you can keep track of the conversations that you're having. So you can use Pipedrive, you can use Go High Level. That's one. I'm not really a fan of Go High Level, but I have used it. I prefer Pipedrive, honestly. HubSpot is not bad. Again, there's tons of them out there. Another one is Monday.com. That's a pretty decent one. But again, I chose to go with Pipedrive. You've got other software and websites to think about. These are sourcing software where you're actually trying to find the avatar. So you're getting out there, you're looking at things like LinkedIn Navigator. Has anybody ever used LinkedIn Navigator? It's good, but it's only specific to LinkedIn, right? So it's not bad. But if your avatar doesn't live on LinkedIn, that's going to be a problem for you. Okay. Apollo.io kind of scrapes the universe out there of different buyers who may or may not align with your avatar. So you got to do a little bit of scraping there. And then there's a Lead IQ, which is very similar to Apollo.io. So either one, again, it helps you generate those lists for people that you can reach out to. So again, that's all part of infrastructure. Let's look at one last piece of infrastructure, which is around your software and websites, your automations and your integrations. These are things like MailChimp. Those are email integrations. Constant Contact. That's another one. It's very similar to MailChimp. I prefer MailChimp. It's just what I'm used to, but I know a lot of folks who like Constant Contact. Some automations, these are more integrations really, is Zapier and Odoo. They actually start connecting different things. I'll let you kind of do your own research on those. But think about this. If infrastructure is so important, then why does vision come first? Well, listen, if it's in Keith's vision to lay on the beach in Spain for 2 months out of the year while he rubs cocoa butter on his belly, that's going to be a really kind of that's a fine vision, right? But if he sets up an infrastructure where he has to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a horrific experience when he's trying to lay on the beach for 2 months out of the year rubbing cocoa butter on his belly, right? So vision, of course, comes first, and that becomes the main circuit breaker for what it is that he's trying to do. So I'm going to get to your question here in just a second. So the Viper framework, we talked about vision, we talked about infrastructure. Now let's talk quickly about process. Process is simply how you do stuff, right? It's things like your tactical processes and your strategic process. Your tactical processes are how you do things from a day-to-day perspective. So tactical is how you do stuff. It's your standard operating procedures, your checklist items, your day-to-day activities. It's pretty much how you do things from day to day. If I drew a box around infrastructure and tactical process, that is your system. That's your system. And I want you to think about that like a battleship or like a warship that's sitting in the harbor. And that you can leave that ship in the harbor, or you can take it out of the harbor and go make some trouble. And that's what strategic planning does. So strategic planning is actually around three main areas, and it's the people, purpose, and promotion that you need. Again, I'm not going to get into a ton of this really, deeply, but it's about the people that you're going to need, the people that you're targeting, and also the people that you're going to need to affect your strategic plan. It's about the purpose. Are you trying to expand market share? Are you trying to launch a new product or service, etc.? And then the promotion. External promotion, letting the world know what it is you're doing and saying the same thing over and over again to your internal people, your employees, and motivating them and promoting this strategic plan. So that is your tactical and strategic part of process. Execution is so incredibly important because this is a really good quote that I love from General George S. Patton. A good plan violently executed now is better than the perfect plan executed next week. I love that because the reality is most plans fall apart in their execution. And the reason for that is because, again, as much as I love you guys as entrepreneurs and business owners and everything else, you have that, you have that to-do list of like 37 items that you're going to try to get done today, right? How many of you have that? Okay. So the reason for that is because you have way too many priorities. And because you have way too many priorities, it has the same impact as having none. So that's why I like to come up with the daily 5. These are the up to 5 of highly specific actions that I'm going to take that are going to move the needle towards my vision. That's important, or my strategic plan, one of the two. So again, these are up to. Now for me, I like 3. 3 is a really good number for me. If I try to do 5 every day, I'm going to get burned out. But 3 is a really good number for me. So up to 3 or 5, up to 5 highly specific actions. And what do I mean by specific? It doesn't mean check email. Like this for me today is part of my strategic plan, right? It's part of my daily 5. So, having and generating contacts out of today is what part of that is. So that's a lead generation piece for me. So let's look at the reporting function. The reporting function is pretty straightforward. It's just tracking what's happened. It tracks lead metrics. It tracks lag metrics. Lead metrics are just based on your actions and activities. What did you do? What are the things you actually did from your daily 5? What did you do and how many times did you do it? And then your lag metrics are just the results of those actions and activities. So I want to know from your daily 5, how many calls did you actually make? How many cold calls did you actually make? How many webinars did you host? How many, again, you don't have any real direct control over your lag metrics. You don't have any direct control over your sales. But you do have direct controls over your actions and activities. And those are things that are really, really important. Okay. So that's the reporting function. So that's the Viper framework. Let's talk quickly we talked about the systems component. Now let's talk about the psychology component. This will start to pick up a pace here a little bit. The psychology component, again, when you're looking at this, systems are important, but these systems are only going to get you so far. This is where you're starting to look at the psychology side of things from both a personal and individual psychology to a business and organizational psychology. When you're looking at personal psychology, you're looking at things like self-worth and self-management, limiting beliefs, something called self-efficacy, right? These are even things around emotional intelligence. These are things that we carry into our business around emotional, just our emotional baggage, if you will. And the one thing that I will tell you that holds a lot of folks back, especially business owners, is having a bad relationship with money. And the reason for that, the reason I say that rather, is because when I see people, they're trying to price things and they're like, well, what are they pricing their thing at? Dude, it doesn't matter what that other person is pricing their thing at if you're differentiated. It doesn't matter what that bag of sugar is if your sugar is better or sweeter or more refined. Differentiate yourself. And that is the one thing that I see people holding themselves back a lot, is because they don't price themselves high enough. They look at what the rest of the market is doing and try to be somewhere in the middle. And that is no way to differentiate yourself. So the business from the external or business psychology, the business or organizational psychology, you look at two components, which is external and internal. So when you're looking at both internal and external business psychology, you're looking at things from an internal perspective like management and leadership, and those are important considerations. We're not really going to get into that today so much, but the external or organizational psychology, you're looking at like vendor psychology, which is around negotiations. You're looking at things like external politics. And I'm saying external politics, meaning like politics that's going on around you, not necessarily internal politics inside your organization. That's more of a management and leadership thing. But the one thing I do want to talk about specific to marketing and lead generation is around buying psychology. Okay, so this is so incredibly important, and this is going to be really helpful for you to understand buying psychology. Let me just describe, before I get into buying psychology, let me talk about the 4 core functions of business. Because the 4 core functions of business are going to be important for you to understand as we start discussing buying psychology. So the 4 core functions of business are true in any business. And those are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And pay attention for this just 1 second. Your customer's journey through your business happens in that order. They are initiated to your company, again, whether they are frozen traffic or cold traffic or warm traffic or hot traffic, they are kept in touch with through your lead generation and your sales departments, okay? Lead generation opens it up, sales closes the sale, operations and fulfillment delivers the deliverable, and of course accounting collects the money and pays the bills. So that is the 4 core functions of business. So let's talk about specifically the marketing magic. Where does the actual magic come from in the marketing? I'm going to put up here 15 reasons why people buy. Remember earlier on when I was talking about desire? This is where you start to help understanding their desire. I'm going to take myself down so that way you can take a screenshot of this. And this is going to be really important for you to understand how you in your product or service directly or indirectly help people in each of these ways. Think about that. How do you help people make money or save time, avoid effort, escape pain? And that could be emotional pain or physical pain, right? It could be spiritual pain even. How do you help people get more comfort or better health? And better health, by the way, can also be in the form of less stress. How do you help them feel more love, gain praise, increase their status with their tribe, right? How do you help them get truth? And people will buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. They will buy for growth. They'll, again, growth in their knowledge, growth in their fitness, in their wellness, in their spirituality. They will buy because things are just new and improved. They will buy because of the novelty of it. They'll buy to be more in control or perceived control or for more certainty. And they will buy to be in contribution with others. So this is important. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to come up with, just think about this for a hot second. How do you and your product or service help people make money, directly or indirectly? How do you, with your product or service, directly or indirectly, how do you help them make money? And I want you to come up with, say, 10 different reasons, directly or indirectly, how you help them make money. And you might be thinking, well, I don't really directly help people make money. Okay, really? Because I could come up with probably, again, directly or indirectly. I can come up with some pretty creative answers for darn near any business. How about saving money? How do you help them? Again, come up with 10 reasons for saving money. How you help them directly or indirectly save money. And come up with 10 reasons under each one of these 15 categories. Now you have 150 different reasons. Again, some of them are going to be wonky, but some of them are going to be really good. And that's going to help you understand your avatar's desire. But if you haven't defined your avatar, this is going to be really difficult for you. But I want you to think about that. How do you help them in each of these 15 different ways? Because once you understand them this way, again, remember, the whole job is to create trust with your avatar. And by addressing their desires, by addressing how you can help them in all of these different ways in terms of why they maybe want to buy your product or service, is they're going to say, wow, that guy gets me, or wow, that gal gets me. That's where you're starting to think about, okay, this is really important for me to think about these different things, because when you're advertising, and this is something that I see all the time is when they're advertising and they say, here's the feature and here's the benefit. And that's where they stop. They don't get any further, right? Hey, let me sell you this widget and the widget does this thing. Okay, great. But the problem is most marketing efforts, if they went just one little step further to demonstrate the meaning. What do I mean by that? So let's use an example of an American car, okay? So if I was going to say a car had 500 horsepower, that's a feature. That's a feature. The benefit is that the car goes from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. 0 to 60 miles an hour in 4 seconds, okay? So it's a pretty fast car. The meaning is that you're going to feel like the coolest dude or the coolest gal on the block. That's the meaning. That's the psychological meaning behind it. That's the fantasy. You have to sell them the fantasy. You have to sell them the meaning. Because if you're not selling the meaning, they're not going to be as fired up to buy. That's when you start to understand the desire. And when you can really tie into that desire. Now, again, you can't just sell only the meaning, right? If I just want to say, hey, I'm going to sell you something that's going to make you feel like a really cool dude, you're like, are you talking about a leather jacket or are you talking about, a handgun, right? Like those are different things, right? And some people may not be into leather jackets and some people might not be into handguns. So I'm just saying you have the features and benefits. I'm not saying that they're irrelevant, but you have to go further to actually tell them the meaning. It's gonna make you feel more comfortable. It's gonna reduce the stress, right? It goes back to those 15 reasons why people buy. So it ties into their desire and it ties into the meaning. Most horrifically bad advertising does not address the meaning. It doesn't sell any sort of desire. It doesn't sell any sort of fantasy. And that is why their advertising sucks. All right. So, let's see. You're asking a good question here, Ima. Mark, of these 15 reasons, which one is the most effective for moving frozen traffic directly to hot? They're not going to move directly to hot. You can't. There's no moving directly to hot because they have to be made problem aware, which is now they are now aware of the problem. You have to continue to educate them to make them solution aware. Like now, and again, probably a solution that you have. So now they have to be made aware of a solution, and now they're made aware of you. Have you ever heard of a company? Like, I'll give you a great example. Cargill. I've heard of Cargill for 25 years before I ever knew what they sold. And they sell all sorts of like soybean oil and, other products. And to be honest with you, I don't even know everything that they do. They're a huge company, but I knew I was very product aware, or I was very aware of them. I had no clue what they sold. So you can't move someone directly from frozen to hot. You're asking which one of the 15 reasons will do that. It's going to depend on the avatar. Because let's go back to Keith, who's selling insurance. If I'm asking Keith about buying insurance, for them, it might be more about saving money, right? Saving money on individual life insurance, maybe the way that they underwrite, or maybe it's more about, less stress, right? Better health in forms of less stress, which would be like, okay, well, hey, now you don't have to stress because these payments are going to come out automatically, or you can prepay for the insurance for, have a prepaid policy, whatever, right? So it just depends. It's just going to depend on the avatar. There's no, unfortunately, it's a good question, but there's no silver bullet there. It's going to depend on the individual avatar. The other thing that's really the main thing, and you have to stop and think about this, and I see this so often, is where people are not paying enough attention to the headline. And the headline has to be tested. And I'm going to show you something here in terms of the headline. Here's a headline that I actually did for this session. There's several different headlines that I tested. I put up lead generation multiplier. I put up marketing magic, and then marketing magic for business owners. The lead generation multiplier, everybody hated it. No one signed up. No one showed up. It was awful, right? This is the thing here that I had, the lead generation multiplier, right? That was no one wanted it. They just absolutely didn't want it. Then I put up marketing magic. I didn't change anything. It's the same class. It's the same course. It's the exact same. Now I have actually added quite a bit to it since I did this originally, but I have added to it quite a bit. But the thing was, I couldn't get people to show up to it until I actually started calling it something different, marketing magic. And then I was seeing a lot of people who were doing marketing magic, and they're like, okay, but they were not quite my avatar. So I added something else. I added marketing magic for business owners. I didn't get as many people signing up, but I did get the people showing up that were much more in alignment with my actual avatar, the one that I actually wanted to work with, right? And this is what it looked like, right? So again, I had the first one there, and then I put that up, and then I changed the color a little bit, and actually people liked this other color a little bit better. And then I moved, and so I was getting, again, I tested both, and then marketing magic for business owners is what the last iteration is. I'm going to continue to test it. I'm going to see what people like. But that's the important thing. We're going to talk the last little bit here around the trust triggers. We're going to be wrapping up here in about 5 minutes or so. But I'm just going to go through these really quickly around different triggers that will actually go, oh, wait a minute, that might be someone who I can actually trust. So a trust trigger is something where it's like, oh, that might be something I can trust, where you can demonstrate authority, right? So again, this is why when I think about like, oh, I'm an actual author, people go, oh, well, that might be someone who I might be able to trust. Well, I've published 8 books, working on my 9th. It shows and demonstrates some authority, right? Title, position, credentials, etc. Affinity is like where there's a correlation, right? Where people have familiarity based on frequency, right? Like they're seeing you a lot. They've heard your name a lot. You know, a lot of times you might have a shared geography. Maybe you're on Instagram together, right? You have a shared interest, right? You're both, again, we talked about that back in Aaliyah, attitudes, lifestyles, interests, and aspirations, right? Interests, that's where you're sharing that same, oh, you're a fan of this sports team? Yeah, so am I, right? Affiliation is being associated or connected to a trustworthy source. Maybe you're a member of a chamber of commerce, right? Or maybe you're a member of a professional organization, like the Better Business Bureau or the NFIB or something like that in your home country, right? That's an affiliation. You might look at something like an endorsement. That's pretty straightforward, from someone who you can trust. I had my last book, all of the endorsements in my book are all of my current and previous clients. They were, and that provides a lot of credibility, right? Provides a lot of trust. Demonstration, we talked about demonstrating credibility, so that's obviously straightforward. And then, of course, being vulnerable, letting people know that, hey, man, this is also something called a damaging admission. There's lots of different ways to demonstrate vulnerability, but saying, hey, look, I haven't got it all figured out, or hey, this is something that I completely screwed up in the early part of my career. Let me show you what it is. That's demonstrating vulnerability, and you can do that through something called a damaging admission, right? So those are all different things that will trigger trust. And of course, these are all the elements that we talked about earlier when it's actually creating trust, right? You're creating and generating and maintaining that trust with your avatar. So that is everything here. I've got just a couple of other things we're going to talk about, and we're going to land the plane. But again, when you're looking at these 4 core functions, lead gen, sales, operations, and accounting, I just want to make this point here is that when you're looking at this, I'm going to take myself down so you can see, because it's a little difficult to see here. But when you're looking at this, I just want you to remember that the lead generation function actually never ends. So if you look at the bottom, I got to actually adjust this slide a little bit, but if you look at the very bottom on the right-hand side, the lead generation function actually it continues on. It's not just sequential, like it's lead gen, then it hands off to sales, then operations, then accounting, like you see on the left. On the right, it never ever ends. And that just keeps going on to what I refer to as infinite marketing. The marketing never ever stops. So you're always reaching out to these people with something of value. So when do you stop marketing to them? Look, when they have demonstrated to you that they are not your client avatar, when they are not in alignment with your core values, or they have died. Basically, you could just stop at number 1. When they have demonstrated that you're not your client, that they're not your client avatar anymore, and assuming you don't like to work with dead people, generally, people who align with your core values, they are also your avatar. But that's what I'm saying. Like that, you just continue to market to them. You continue to share lots of value with them. And again, that's just something that I just want you to keep in mind. One thing I do say is I see people now, they tend to try to go to automation way too soon, or they reject automation altogether. Right now, AI is being pushed in so many different directions and different dimensions of lead generation and sales and connections and all things like that. And I'm not saying that AI is not good. I like AI for what it is. But remember, you're trying to maintain and keep that human connection going with your avatar, especially if these are people who have purchased from you. I'm not going to rely on AI automations. I'm going to rely on actual conversations with folks. So again, when we're talking about infrastructure, infrastructure, going back to automations and integrations, this MailChimp, Constant Contact, Zapier, all of this stuff, like I think people try to go way too quickly to these different automations and integrations. And look, you can use these automations and integrations to help deliver value. Send them things you know they're going to value because that is your avatar. Like think about it. If you know your avatar are married couples who've got kids at home, don't you think that maybe once in a while they want to go on a date night, and then maybe there's a local community center that's actually watching kids for a period of time so you can go maybe do some holiday shopping? Again, once you know their problems, you can deliver value to help solve those problems. Give away tons of value. And you can do that by demonstrating competence to your avatar. At the beginning, we're going to be wrapping up. Again, I asked you to seek knowledge to understand versus seeking knowledge to take action. If you guys have any questions, so this is, let's see here. Give me one hot second here. You got a question here. I'm going to come back to you here in a second, Keith. So I'm going to put this down. So I did, again, put up there what you plan to take action on. I'm going to share with you this last story, and then we will put the fries in the bag. So this is kind of funny. What I'm going to show you here is a photo of a guy who he's a bank robber. Like he's holding a gun to against or pointing it at the bank teller right now. And this guy, he's not making any effort at all to disguise his face, right? And two guys, in fact, in 1995, MacArthur Wheeler and Clifton Earl Johnson, they robbed two banks at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, at gunpoint without any attempt to disguise who they were. And what they did, though, is they covered their faces in lemon juice, fully believing that it would make them invisible to security cameras. I'm not kidding. Okay. So they were convinced, right? So these two researchers by the name of Dunning and Kruger, they were fascinated by this, and they thought, okay, we've got to do a study around this in terms of false confidence. So there's two trajectories here on this graph. One on the left is around confidence, and the one on the bottom is around competence. So as you progress from left to right and you start to learn more, when you're starting out something, everyone starts down here where they have very low confidence, but they don't really know much. But when they get this idea and they start out on this endeavor, their confidence spikes really, really fast, and they have lots of false confidence until they get to the peak of Mount Stupid, where they start to realize they don't know what they don't know. That's when it crashes down really fast and they start realizing what they don't know into the valley of despair. And remember when I was trying to sell books and I didn't know anything about selling books and I was so discouraged? Well, this is where a lot of business owners give up, in this valley of despair. But if you keep going, if you start building on your competence, you start building on your knowledge, you start heading up the slope of enlightenment, and eventually you get to the plateau of sustainability. So what I'm offering to you guys, I'm not looking to sell anything. This is just a school community that I have. I know some of you are actually already involved in this. So would love to have you guys join if you are interested. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that in the link. I'm not here to sell anything right now. It is absolutely free. Eventually that will change. But I've only been on the school community for about, I think maybe a month and a half. So if you are interested in that, you are more than welcome to join. That is the URL. And again, you are welcome to join Strategic Boardroom right there. All right, we've got some questions here. Let's see here. Let's see. Keith is asking or saying, you got me because of that headline, because of my business failure as marketing. The business owner told me that you were talking to me. Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. So remember earlier on, Keith, when I put Marketing Magic by Strategic Boardroom, it didn't tell It didn't tell enough of the story. And this is interesting that I know we're running long here, but again, you guys can watch this on replay if you really want. But the interesting thing, think about this anytime you pull out a book. So this is my book here. I know you can't see it because the camera's too far away, but it's The Time Wealthy Advantage. That's the headline. The sub headline is the brand promise, a strategic approach to building the life and business you want. That's the promise, right? So once I put in there marketing magic, headline, right? For business owners, okay, now I'm probably going to say I need to probably put maybe test some more in there, getting clarity. It's got to be something more pithy than that. But again, really give some thought about something that does for business owners. But once I started getting business owners, people are like, oh, yeah, that's for me. Okay. But again, it doesn't matter what I like. What matters is what you guys respond to. So my opinion really doesn't matter. You just have to test. So you can't just throw stuff up there and not actually be scientific about this. This is why a lot of people waste a lot of money on marketing, because think about it. How easy is it right now to run ads on Facebook? It's pretty darn easy because you can just boost a post, throw your credit card in there, and Facebook doesn't care if it's good or not, if it's a good ad or not a good ad, right? Let's see here. I'm is asking a question. How do you align your core purpose with the trigger of avoiding effort without devaluing your professional brand? If anything, that would be, it wouldn't devalue my personal brand. My core purpose would align, like, again, so if I'm looking to avoid, I'm trying to get people to avoid effort. Think of it another way of making it easy for them. So if I'm trying to make something easy for someone, like, that ties absolutely hand in glove. One of the things that I do is I provide professional education for folks. Not only do I have a degree in accounting, but I'm currently pursuing my PhD in industrial and organizational psychology. So I'm trying to boil down all this big brain stuff into something that's very palatable for my avatar, and it makes it nice and easy for them. So really good question. I really like that question. Keith is, let's see here. I plan on taking action on building my business. My mentor says I am a match waiting to get struck. The changes I have made regarding my business will result in my match getting struck. Excellent. Okay. So again, be a little bit specific in terms of, like, what do you have your 3 C's dialed in? I know you've got your client. I feel like you've got your core purpose dialed in, Keith. You might need to be a little bit more specific in terms of your avatar. And I would also invite you to really dial into that core purpose, because that really also attracts the people that you most want to work with. When I did not take time to really take and define what my core purpose was, I was taking all sorts of people, just thinking, well, these are the people that come, so I just have to serve them. That is not true. And because not everybody who comes to me are people who I necessarily want to work with. But I can put out in my marketing the people who are most in alignment with my core purpose. All right. So that is all I have today, folks. Thanks so much for sticking around. I know we went a little long. We had some really good questions. Thanks so very much. For those of you who signed up through Eventbrite, you will be getting a copy of this in your email. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the boardroom.